some movie sequels looked guaranteed to happen until Hollywood suddenly pulled the plug. From superhero franchises to cult classics, these stars fought for years to bring their movies back, but the sequels never made it to the big screen. Here are the movie sequels stars wanted but never got. Taylor Kitsch was fully ready to continue one of Hollywood's biggest sci-fi franchises, right before the entire series collapsed. John Carter was supposed to launch multiple sequels, and director Andrew Stanton even had titles and logos planned for future movies. Kitsch didn't just want another sequel, he was reportedly excited about the screenplay for the next chapter and wanted to return to Barsoom. But despite all those plans, the movie became a massive box office disaster for Disney, losing hundreds of millions of dollars. That instantly shut down every sequel idea, ending the franchise after just one film and leaving Kitsch's planned return completely unfinished. Liam Neeson was ready to assemble the A-Team again, but the sequel mission never got cleared. After starring in the 2010 action remake, Neeson openly said he and the rest of the cast were eager for another movie, and even talked about taking the team's adventures to places like New York and other countries. For a while, the possibility stayed alive because the studio hadn't officially shut the door on a sequel. But Neeson already suspected the movie's box office numbers weren't strong enough to justify another massive production. Years later, director Joe Carnahan confirmed the sequel was officially dead, ending the franchise after only one film. Sylvester Stallone suddenly tried reviving a forgotten 80s action movie decades later, but the reunion never came together. Long after Tango and Cash had faded from the spotlight, Stallone revealed that he was actively working on a sequel and had already spoken to Kurt Russell about returning. Stallone sounded fully committed to bringing the buddy cop duo back, even though Russell reportedly wasn't nearly as enthusiastic about revisiting the franchise. At the time, Stallone still believed he could change Russell's mind and get the project moving, but after that burst of excitement, updates completely disappeared as Stallone shifted focus toward other movies like Samaritan and The Expendables 4. Christina Ricci wanted to jump back into one of the most visually wild movie worlds ever made, and the cast was already talking sequels before the first film even released. While filming Speed Racer, everyone involved reportedly believed the colorful racing universe had endless possibilities for more stories. As production wrapped, the cast kept pushing the Wachowskis to write another movie because they wanted to return so badly. Even years later, Ricci still expressed excitement about doing a sequel and working with Lana and Lily Wachowski again. But despite all that enthusiasm behind the scenes, Speed Racer crashed at the box office, and the planned continuation never got another green light. Kevin Costner almost launched an entire thriller trilogy that most people never even knew existed. Mr. Brooks wasn't planned as a one-and-done movie. The story was designed to continue across 2 more sequels. At first, Costner thought the sequel idea was just a gimmick to convince him to sign on, especially since he had never made follow-ups to some of his biggest films. But once the writers explained their long-term plan, he completely changed his mind and wanted to see the story continue. The problem was that Mr. Brooks struggled at the box office, and MGM later faced financial trouble, stopping the sequel plans before they could move forward. Will Smith had a superhero franchise ready to explode, and then the sequel completely vanished. After Hancock became a box office hit, plans for another movie started moving fast, with director Peter Berg even revealing story details for a follow-up that would partly explore the past of Smith's troubled hero. Smith stayed excited about expanding the universe and kept coming up with new ideas for where the story could go next. Everything made it look like Hancock was becoming another major franchise alongside Men in Black and Bad Boys. But as Smith's schedule filled with projects like After Earth and Men in Black 3, the sequel slowly stalled until all progress disappeared. Karl Urban tried to rally fans into saving one of the most beloved cult action movies of the 2000s, but the sequel still never happened. Even though Dredd gained a strong following and helped launch Alex Garland's directing career, the movie struggled badly at the box office, putting any follow-up in danger almost immediately. Urban refused to give up and openly pushed for more Dredd movies, even encouraging fans to speak out online and support the franchise. The movement created major social media buzz, but it still wasn't enough to get Dredd 2 into production. A planned Dredd TV series also failed to materialize, leaving Urban's sequel hopes unfinished. Tony Todd once wanted to take Candyman in a completely unexpected direction, turning the horror icon into a college professor struggling to live like a normal person. Todd was deeply invested in the idea and described a sequel where Candyman tried suppressing his violent instincts while working at a women's college in New England. the story would eventually pull him back into his terrifying bee-covered form after a tragedy triggered his darker side again. Todd was especially excited about the movie's visual ideas, including scenes of Candyman standing in a massive blizzard, but disputes over studio rights and profit sharing stalled the project until the sequel ultimately collapsed. Ron Perlman spent years trying to bring one superhero sequel back from the dead, but it still never happened. After Hellboy 2, the Golden Army teased a massive ending for Hellboy's story. Perlman kept pushing for a third movie that would finally show the character becoming an apocalyptic threat to Earth. The scale of Guillermo del Toro's planned finale was huge, and Perlman openly stayed committed to making it happen. But even with years of discussion and continued support from the original team, the project never secured enough backing. Eventually, the franchise moved toward a reboot instead, leaving Hellboy 3 unfinished. Armie Hammer wanted the Man from U.N.C.L.E. sequel so badly that he joked even fan fiction could help save it. Years after the stylish spy movie developed a cult following, Hammer revealed that a sequel script was already being worked on, though the team wanted to make sure the story was strong before moving ahead. Hammer stayed publicly committed to returning and kept pushing for another installment, showing how much faith he still had in the franchise. But the original movie's weak box office performance always made a follow-up difficult to justify. As time passed without major updates, the sequel remained stuck in limbo despite Hammer's continued enthusiasm. John C. Reilly actually wanted to bring back one of the wildest comedy duos of the 2000s, but the sequel never escaped development limbo. Years after Step Brothers became a fan favorite, there was reportedly already an idea for a second movie, and Reilly openly hoped it would finally happen. For a moment, it sounded like another reunion with Will Ferrell could really be on the way, especially after Anchorman managed to pull off a long-awaited sequel, but time kept passing without progress. As schedules became harder to line up and Adam McKay shifted toward making award-season dramas, the chances of Step Brothers 2 slowly faded away. Tiffany Haddish wanted Girls Trip 2 so badly that she was ready to write the sequel herself. After the original comedy became a major hit, Haddish and the rest of the lead cast reportedly kept pushing to reunite for another movie, but the sequel kept running into problem after problem behind the scenes. First, there wasn't a finished screenplay, and later the project became tangled up in salary disputes involving the lead actors. Even with those setbacks, Haddish stayed committed to making the sequel happen and was still working toward getting the project moving. Despite all the excitement surrounding another reunion, Girls Trip 2 still hasn't made it into production.